Hey everybody, and welcome to Let's Look at Titan Souls. This is a new game that is coming out on Steam tomorrow or today, depending on when this video actually makes it up. It's going to be 15 American dollars, and also you can purchase it with the currency of your choice from another country, potentially. It's available on Steam, as well as the PlayStation Network. I am playing the Steam version today. I'm also very quickly just going to go and crank up the brightness just a little bit so that you can see the wonderful colors of the game. It's developed by Acid Nerve. I believe this might actually be their first commercial release. At least it's the first one that I'm familiar with. No offense. And published by Devolver Digital. And it's a game that's gotten a lot of buzz within the indie sphere particularly, and even within our own circle. I know Nick is, he's really looking forward to the game, as are, you know, people like Madison Bear. I don't know if they've actually played it yet, like the retail release themselves. I don't want to put opinions in their mouths. But there was also a demo that came out that got a decent amount of buzz, and it was originally based on a Ludum Dare game, I think, a Game Jam game that has then been developed into a full commercial product. Kind of similar, I guess, in terms of development and release to something like Gods Will Be Watching from last year. Anyway, we're going to get started. I have gotten a save file here with about 2 hours. I've killed 8 of the Titans. I'll talk a little bit more about the supposed length of the game as we get a little bit further on, but we're just going to start a new game here, which means that a lot of what you're going to actually see is going to be from the demo here, but because I already know the patterns of the bosses, I think we're going to be able to make it through relatively quickly. So in a way, this is almost a video where, in spite of the fact that it seems mostly mechanics focused, and I hope that doesn't come across as like derogatory to say that, but in spite of the fact that it seems mostly mechanics focused, there might be spoilers, because basically the entire game, it's very minimalistic, but it's not minimalistic visually or aesthetically here or musically, which is cool. Usually, you know, you end up having games that kind of, you know, have minimalistic mechanics, and then they mirror that with their aesthetic. This is a very maximal game. This is the kind of game that makes me get pissed off when people are like, oh, another indie game with 2D graphics. How original. You're like this is exactly the same as something like VVV, which is exactly the same as something like Caro Blaster, which is exactly the same as something like Prison Architect or something like that. The first thing you notice is very lush, at least aesthetically. Lush music, lush graphics. I really like the just the sheer scope and size of the environments is awesome. And the kind of cool subtle effects as well, like the way that the water sort of laps up here. You got that visual effect that makes it look like the water is rising and falling. Anyway, we're going to make it through here, and I'll talk about the mechanics of the game, because that's what the game is very much focused on. This is essentially, you know, I've heard that there's a game design principle, which is basically like, you know, boil down the core mechanic of your game. It's going to be like a 30-second loop, and just make that as fun as possible, because that's what people are going to be doing over and over and over. Titan Souls is like the most distillate example of that I maybe have ever seen, at least in a game of this scope. Basically what the game is all about, it's a boss killing game. Every enemy you fight is going to be a boss, and they're going to have one very specific way to beat them, and you've got to figure out the pattern and how to hit their weak point. You only have one arrow. Whoops, I accidentally opened that door, which is not a problem. But you only have one arrow, and you have the ability to like go back and pick it up, or hold the X button down. I am using the 360 controller here, and go pick it up for yourself. You can also, if you wanted to, you know, go climb these vines over here. A lot of care taken for stuff like that. A lot of neat little tricks, like if you try to roll up the staircase, it doesn't work, but there actually is a sprint button. So yeah, that's pretty much it. You have a roll, you have a run, you have to roll to start the run. Can we hang out in this little shadow realm up here? I didn't even look. I almost see like a little bit of a Fez influence, visually speaking, with kind of like the complexity of the environments, and the vine sprite in particular looks very similar to Fez. But anyway, from a gameplay standpoint, there's basically no Fez-like stuff going on here. So let's fight our first bosses. This is a game that is all about, as mentioned, fighting bosses, and what that typically comes down to is figuring out what the weak point of a boss is, and then figuring out a way to exploit it. It's very interesting to play this alongside. This boss is going to be very easy for us. I might actually, I'm not going to say deliberately get us killed, but I might run around here just to get us a little extra time. Oh, I didn't realize there was actually a slowing effect on some of that goo. I can break, I think, some of the other goo. You don't have to take the arrow all back in one fell swoop, by the way. You can, you know, do it, kind of in discrete steps if you want to, or in continuous steps, I guess. But, ooh, what was I saying here? Excuse me, come here. It's very interesting to play this alongside a game like Bloodborne, because Bloodborne, and you die in one hit. I forgot to mention that. That's a pretty core mechanic. Bloodborne, the bosses are difficult, of course. That's kind of like the draw of the game, or one of the draws of the game. But they're also very maximal. They're huge bosses. They don't have like one specific weak point or a point that's vulnerable. They might take more damage on specific parts of their models than on other specific parts of their models. And they might take, you know, more damage if you interrupt them during their attacks or something like that. But compared to something like this, you know, they have huge health bars, and, you know, you just kind of bash them and not, like, hit them and don't get hit. Titan Souls functions on a very different principle, and this principle is basically like, you and the boss are pretty much on the same level, like, which is not to say that it's easy. Quite the opposite. Rather, the boss has like one specific, you know, set of attacks that it does, and there might be, you know, more than one attack in there. But it only has like one very, very narrow set of criteria in which it's actually vulnerable. So there we had to break the slime and then eventually kill the heart, and then we'll suck up its life force and continue onwards here. And we get this nice little fanfare here that will spin us around. There's some Fezzy type stuff going on here, and I know that it's controversial to talk about stuff. Well, maybe not controversial. I know that it's a divisive game and a divisive developer, but from a visual standpoint, I think that influence is definitely there. I'm just going to turn down the audio just a little bit here, because it does go, you know, quiet, loud, quiet, like a Pixies song from time to time. But yeah, what I was trying to get at is basically that just like, this is a game that is fun. I do believe that, but it's also just kind of like a cool, like, intellectual exercise if you love games. To be like, whoa, man, this is like a really neat design. Instead of just throwing, you know, two different kinds of enemies at you. Mobs, which are basically just like cannon fodder. Not that all games are necessarily guilty of that. Mobs, which are basically just cannon fodder that you know, beat down very easily. And then bosses, which are cannon fodder with larger HP bars. Every boss, every enemy, I guess by extension in Titan Souls, is very carefully and deliberately designed to be an interesting and unique challenge, which is really cool. And it makes it so that, you know, the first time you fight a boss is very scary as you try to figure out their patterns. And this might seem easy, but it is, again, a little Soulsy in that, and I know people hate when you compare something to Dark Souls, but at the same time, don't let that, you know, completely write off your, you know, it being used as valuable criticism, because here there actually is a useful analog to be made, I think. Excuse me. This boss is a little trickier, I think, at least. The brain boss is very much the tutorial boss, but this entire area is like the tutorial area. So what we have to do here, you know, usually you can work through it yourself mentally. The only problem is actually figuring out how you're actually going to make it happen in reality. So for example, in our situation here, we got Iceman. There's a brain inside of it. The brain glows. Glowing is like a universal video game sign for that's the weak point. You might think, well, we got to try to get the ice block on top of the fire. That may well be possible. I'm dead. Your progress does save from boss to boss, by the way. That may well be possible, but there's another way, and this game actually, or this boss actually does a pretty good job of teaching you a new mechanic in the game, which is basically that your arrows can take on, I don't want to say elemental properties, but they can take on fire. This is not the same boss I was fighting before. I've come in a different area. This is good. You should have a chance to see, I'd be surprised if you didn't see at least half a dozen bosses over the course of this. So again, oh no. Easy boss to understand where you have to hit him. Difficult to actually make it happen in reality. So I want to get him to fall over. I really thought I could get him there. Dang, that was so close. I really want to get him to fall over in such a way that his eye is visible to me. Usually that's the way it works. You know, the enemy does their series of attacks, you dodge them, and then try to get a snipe in at their weak point. We'll try that guy again instead of Iceman. Not that either of them are exceptionally difficult for this point in the game. What's cool is that this is a game, such awful dodging, dodged right into him there. This is a game where I could totally understand by looking at it, you would say, alright, it's a cool gimmick, you fight bosses. Is there anything more to it? Not a lot, but the way that the game is threaded together, excuse me, my analog stick was like a little non-neutral there. The way that the game is threaded together is very interesting. It's actually, I got to cross that threshold at some point. I thought I could make it through there. The way the game is threaded together is like open world. I don't want to necessarily say non-linear, but it is kind of non-linear. It's not like it's not a Metroidvania where, you know, we beat all these bosses and then we get like bouncing arrows that allow us to kill a boss later in the game, or, you know, we get a boomerang that is essential to actually beating another enemy that we're going to come across later. Like, nothing like that happens. So I guess, yeah, you know, my reticence to use the term non-linear is a personal problem. Guys, I'm actually terrible. I was reading a review. I actually read IGN's review of this by the fellow who I'm not personally acquainted with, but I liked his review, by the name of Brandon Tyrrell. And he said that there's 24 bosses in the game, 24 titans, and where was that brain? Maybe I fought the brain dude on the right here. It took him about 4 hours. So I would say that if you're really paying attention, and this is a game that rewards, you know, observation and concentration, that strikes me as it could possibly be a pretty good reference point for how long the game might be. For me personally, I'm 2 hours in on my main save file, and I've killed 8 of the titans. So that looks more like 6 hours to me. But I think you can probably understand that I maybe am just like really bad at it. So again, we might be able to brain the dude, but instead we're just going to use fire arrows here. And we caught him with the backswing of that one, and that'll allow us to kill that boss. Alright, I'm buckling down here, because I want to show what happens once you get past the tutorial world and things get... I don't want to say more interesting, because and that sounds like a compliment, because... Or, sorry, it sounds like an insult. Like the game doesn't get more interesting as it goes along, but it's really because it sets a high standard early on for the fact that, you know, this is a game that is definitely unique in its execution and design. Overall, how do I feel about Titan Souls? I think Titan Souls is great. I don't know, I'm trying to figure out where it falls, on, like where great falls for me on like good, pretty good, really good. Maybe pretty good is a better way for me to describe it. I think it's a game that a lot of people will find themselves really, really resonating with. If you're the kind of person who... And there's gonna be people who take issue with what I say here. If you're the kind of person who, when they play a game, can get wrapped up in like, oh, that's a really interesting design. That's a really cool mechanic. I think this is gonna be the kind of thing that's more likely to draw those people in, as opposed to people who are just like, I want to play a game that's fun. And I hate using that voice because it makes it sound like, you know, that's not a completely valid way to think about games. Which is bullshit, man. Okay. Just stay as far away as possible. And by that, I mean get right next to them. There we go. We managed to make that one work. Like, if you're the kind of person who strictly thinks of things on a $1 per hour basis, or thinks of things on a replayability basis, I'm on the fence about how replayable a game like this is going to be. I know there is a hard mode, there's a no-roll mode, which scares the shit out of me. Hard mode, I believe, according to the review, kept the... enemy patterns the same, but increases their speed and their, well, maybe just increases their speed, thus makes them more annoying. We got our final boss for this section here, which is cool. But I feel like the first time through is really going to be that magical playthrough because, you know, you're going to have to divine how the boss patterns work through observation and experimentation. So, you know, if you're the kind of person who's really going to get into speedrunning and min-max or has that kind of proclivity to themselves, then you might consider that this game could have high... replayability, and you might not necessarily be wrong. But for me, I think it's really going to be all about, like, the first playthrough. Oh, actually managed to make that one work. I mean, as you can see, when you know the enemy patterns, you can kill them very, very quickly. You know, enemies have a weak point, you just need to figure out how to exploit that weak point. But really, it is that kind of, like, From Software type thing where you can die on a boss 15, 20 times, and then, once you know the formula for beating the boss, you can pretty easily do it on the first, second, or third try. I think, at least. That's my assumption thus far. Like, I think it's mechanically really interesting, aesthetically, and from a musical standpoint, I think it's beautiful. The core mechanic of the game is unique and really, really satisfying. Something about it, though, just kind of keeps its, I don't want to say it falls short, but it keeps it from necessarily being... there is a great sense of gravitas in the game as well, and, like, you know, the scale and the size of these environments helps out a lot with that, to make you feel like you're really like a tiny kind of David in a Goliath's world. But I can't see myself replaying this multiple times. I can't see myself getting super, super into it, but I think it is going to be a lot of fun for that, you know, 4 to 6 hour long experience for the people who choose to get into it. Whether or not that's worth $15 to you, you know, there's people out there that play, they exclusively play like strategy games with, you know, 40-hour long playtimes bare minimum, or, you know, in EU4 or something like that, 40 hours per campaign. But if you're the kind of person who's okay with maybe a little bit more of a minimalistic experience, I think you could do a lot worse than Titan Souls. I'm not trying to make this sound like a, this is our overworld, by the way, it's kind of cool. I'm not trying to make this sound like it's meant as a backhanded compliment. Rather, I'm just trying to avoid coming over the top as too positive. And I'm guilty of buying into the hype cycle for this a little bit, and that's not the fault of anybody but myself and my friends, but, we played this at conventions and we were like, this is awesome, it's a really cool idea for a game. I do think that, in a way, it's almost a little bit better for a convention setup where you get hit with, like, maybe they allow you to see 4 or 5 bosses in a 5-minute long demo. You're like, well, this is chock full of good ideas. It is chock full of good ideas, but they don't keep coming at that pace, at least in my experience with the game so far. Which is not to say that it's a game that's devoid of good ideas. Rather, there's just, it takes a lot of work to make each one of these bosses, I have to imagine. So there's not 100 bosses in the game. There's apparently 24. And yeah, I looked that up. But I did play 2 hours myself, not because of due diligence or anything of the sort, rather just because it is a fun and a satisfying experience, and it has that thrill of finally beating that boss that's handed you your ass for quite some time. I really can't stress enough that at least on a, I mean, now I'm coming across more negative than I feel, I think, and that's a communication breakdown for me personally, because I really like this game and I think it's quite good. I just think that in a weird way, it's kind of not as good as the sum of its parts, but still good. Like, I really like the art, I really like the music, and I really like the mechanics. Especially the core mechanic that gets looped over and over. We don't need to necessarily go do that right now. We could, but we don't need to. Let's go fight this guy on the right side here. There are some light puzzles, like, if you ever played a Zelda game, you'll understand what to do with those torches, I imagine. But anyway, I like all of the individual elements. I think, as a whole, it's just a little bit not quite as comprehensive, maybe, as I hoped. The bosses, as you might expect, get substantially more difficult as the game goes along. Like I said, I've only beaten 8, and... No! I didn't go to the other save point, I guess. That's my mistake. I didn't actually have that happen when I was playing through blind. Yeah, it's a game that's first and foremost good. Secondly, very interesting and novel. I'm not sure if it's going to be for everybody. Let's just put it that way. But it's not for everybody in the same way that something like Crusader Kings 2 is not for everybody. It's not for everybody in that there are some people who just, won't find the, either the value proposition or the, just the actual kind of idea of only fighting one enemy with one pattern appealing, even if that pattern does kick their ass over and over and over. There's people who don't like, the Souls games. There's people who don't like, everything out there. You gotta inform yourself and know, what group you fall into here. I do think it's a great game, though. Like, I'm sure that you will see coverage of this game from Mathis, Nick, and Bear, and in particular, if you want... I hate painting myself as the guy who's going to be negative about it, but if you want to see the opinion of someone who is very, very enthusiastic about the game prior to its release, you should go watch Nick's video whenever that goes up, because I know this is probably like the game that he's most excited for this year. If you find yourself, watching my videos on games and Nick, Broccoli Smile, his videos on games, and you agree with him more often, this was the save point, by the way. Can't miss it, except I did. And that's on me for that one, for sure. But, then you should definitely check out his content when it comes up. I don't know, maybe he'll hate it. I doubt it, though. Okay, so Yeti. I have defeated the Yeti. I did find him fairly difficult. He has a very obvious weak point. Can't stand still like that. He has a very obvious weak point, his bright red bottom. Whether or not we're actually able to exploit that over the course of the video, we'll see. There's actually some really interesting bosses here, so I would like to show them off. And I would like to show off myself and be like, hey, look, I beat a boss that wasn't in the demo. I didn't actually play the demo myself, but I'm just assuming that the demo was basically like that first tutorial world. I really like this. This is one of those games that's kind of... don't run in a line that's just like completely straight with them. You're Charlize Theron. Okay, I'm not going to spoil it, but hey. I don't like that movie. Anyway, I think like, this game is illuminating for me that I really, and I've been thinking this for a while as I've been playing more and more games, but I really kind of, like, resonate with minimalism in games. Again, exactly the same mistake. Like, I really like the idea of one core mechanic done right instead of, like, 100 different things. And, you know, I would rather have one core mechanic done right than 100 core mechanics done right. It's kind of a false dichotomy to say, like, do one thing really well or 100 things shittily, you know? That's painting a dishonest picture. I kind of like games that just do one, and by kind of like, I mean, like, prefer oftentimes games that just do one thing and they focus on that as kind of like their core experience. Another game like that from this year, at least this year on Steam, that I can point to is something like 868 Hack. Like, ooh, I botched it! I almost got out of the way, though my brain almost got that pattern unlock. By the way, this is the kind of game where don't watch other people play it if you're going to be frustrated watching them die, because it's going to happen a lot. Compared to something like, and then I don't mean this as an insult to a game like Pillars of Eternity, but Pillars of Eternity is a maximal complicated game, and as I was playing it, I was like, I kind of longed for, a game like Titan Souls, basically, or a game like 868 Hack that just is, it kind of wears its mechanics on its sleeve a little bit more. Oh my god, what am I doing? Okay, we gotta be smarter. This is not going right. I've beaten this boss. As far as I'm concerned, it's the easiest boss in this section, or maybe I just got lucky. The thing about all bosses dying in one hit is that really, you do sometimes find yourselves in like an unexpected situation. You don't have that like back and forth that you have against bosses in other games where they have like a huge gargantuan health bar, where you're like, I'm gonna lose. Like, you know you're gonna lose way in advance of the actual loss. I know I'm gonna lose before I even walk into the door. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. Like, again, I can't really stress enough that a lot of the experience of playing Titan Souls for me has just been this kind of like illumination, and it's been an intellectual exercise in kind of like novel game design. And that's not me trying to just put on, fancy glasses and coming up with, big words or anything like that here. It's just a different way than I normally feel about most of the games that I play. Okay, this is our chance. Ah, we had him! We actually did have him. Okay, yeah, throw your shit at me. I don't care. I thought I hit him there because the music went out, but it was just because I was sucking my own arrow back. I've got my problem here. Yeah, okay. You gotta experiment. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. I need to fire the arrow very slightly faster. His derriere is only present and unaccounted for a very brief amount of time. So I gotta shoot the arrow faster. He comes through and then we go whoop. And in the future, you probably want to shoot behind him. Where does he faces the opposite direction of where he came from? I have to, this is why I say, like, I imagine, I really like fighting these bosses, and I imagine that they probably took a lot of work each, because you gotta make sure they're actually, like, perfect. It's not just like, we're gonna make a big boss, and it's gonna slice, and then every once in a while it's gonna do, like, an AoE attack. Ah, the freaking icicle blocked me, but you've betrayed yourself, game. That icicle being there lets me know that I'm on exactly the right track. You guys getting tired of watching me die over and over? If this is the kind of thing that bothers you, I can't tell whether this is exactly the wrong game for you or exactly the right game for you, because this is an experience that's going to happen a lot. Oh, scumbag Northern Lion, I beat the Yeti on the first try and I haven't even played the game yet. Don't start with me. I haven't played this on keyboard and mouse, by the way. It suggests that it's best played on the gamepad. Nope, very stupid of me. Oh my god. I'll go fight another boss. I'll take like a little palate cleanser while I'm here. It suggested that it's best to play on the gamepad, and I buy that. I like playing, action games on the gamepad. Alright. So this is another boss. This is kind of like the final boss for this section. What's neat about this boss is that it has a different way, sort of, to get the kill. It's a much longer boss fight. Great music as well. And I like that they mix the bosses up like this. Like, not all of them are like, roll out of the way, shoot them with an arrow. There's another boss in this area that is kind of a water Oh, I probably should have rolled earlier there. It's a water boss, water-based boss, I guess, with some platforms on it. I should be dead. Yeah, I got knocked over by the tower there. It's a water-based boss with some platforms on it, and you got to do some swimming involved there, which obviously, you know, annoys the crap out of people sometimes, but it's a really well-designed boss. And then this boss, you've got to use its own tools against it. Like, this boss, at least for the first half of it, is mostly just about, well, in my perspective, is mostly just about survival here. So, like, this guy pops up, and we got to knock out, I'll spoil it completely for you here. You got to knock out all 5 of his teeth. I feel weird, like, saying even that there's a spoiler warning. Because I'm like, you know, the boss has, like, 5 glowing things on his body. You're probably going to be able to figure it out for yourself. If anything, faster than I figured it out for myself. But, you know, well, if you're the kind of person who's worried about stuff like that in a game like this, you probably shouldn't be watching this video in the first place, I suppose. But I'll do what I can. Alright, so we've got completely out of sync here. He's only popped up for like a brief amount of time. He also has that like nose attack. Oh, I hit exactly the place where I'd already hit before. He also has that nose attack that like pushes us back. It's super annoying. By the way, if you touch the ice, like those icicles, you just straight up die on contact. And I like that you know, I keep hitting the same spot here, which is bad. But Titan Souls doesn't let you cheat. It's not just like, okay, well you hit him, we'll take away one of his teeth arbitrarily. Like, you actually have to land that shot. You know, the game is all about execution. It's not just like, you got the right idea, congratulations. Like, I make this distinction in a lot of games, but, you know, there's games where, these are basically puzzles, let's be honest. There's games where the puzzles boil down to understanding the concept, then you got it, and then there's games where, you know, you gotta understand the concept, and then there's a level of execution that's difficult to hit. This is a game where usually, conceptually, it's pretty easy to understand what you have to do. The difficulty is in actually doing it. In contrast to something like, I don't know, maybe, and this is not meant as an insult to any game, but something like Space Chem, conceptually coming up with the actual mechanism that you have to adhere to in order to survive is a real problem, or not survive, but in order to successfully, in order to successfully complete the puzzle is a real problem, for me at least. Or Infinifactory, that's a game that's all about concepts, and you know, actually placing the blocks is not a difficult thing. But coming up with how to place the blocks is a difficult thing. This is more like, you know, this boss has a weak point, this boss does X attacks, you have to dodge X attacks and hit their weak point. We can do this. I just did this, this is maybe like the second to last boss that I've beaten. I've beaten all the bosses in this area. Maybe there is more replayability than I originally thought, because apparently I have learned nothing. Oh, that didn't hit. Come on, this time, this time. There we go, we got 2. I don't believe that you can just sneak a shot through like one of his empty teeth. I can understand why you would think that, because there's like a bunch of red back there that we could maybe take advantage of, but I don't think it works. We got this one. Oh, we don't have this one. The timing, it's difficult. Yeah, that one's completely botched. All right, let's do this. Perfect. I don't even want to try to land a shot because, you know, I'm alive right now. I really thought the timing on that one was going to be excellent. Okay, that one was obviously off. This one's not going to make it either. Just try to, you know, have these guys pop up in such a way that it doesn't completely destroy the arena for me so I don't accidentally roll into the ice. Alright, that was bullshit. He did the steam attack from his nose. That pushed me back. You're obviously not going to be up much longer. Okay, here we go. Botched that one. The timing on that could have been perfect. This is alright. Come on. Oh! One of these days, man. We still got like one more after this as well. And then we've got to hit him. Then we got to hit him with the arrow. Alright, here we go. This is our time to shine. No! He did the steam attack and caused me to get weirdly pushed around. Come on, we can make this. You gotta beat one boss that's not in the tutorial over the course of the video, otherwise people won't respect you. This is obviously not gonna land. Yo, if you think this is painful to watch, Titan Souls is available for $15 on Steam. In its pre-purchase, if it's still available in there, ooh, it's 10% off. feel free to put your money where your mouth is and beat the shit out of me. Prove that I actually am as bad as you think I am. I should not have stood there. You can see I had the right idea with that shot. Would have landed. I sacrificed a lot of the arena here. It's alright. This is exactly how my winning run went as well. Takes a while. Takes a lot to make a stew, man. That one was very slightly off, but the timing was fine. That one was very slightly off, but the timing was fine. Oh, are you kidding me? I call a little bit of bullshit on that one. This is certainly the longest boss fight I've ever had in Titan Souls. Okay, that one would have been pretty good as well. Are you kidding me? We were like right next to it, and then the nose steam pushed us away. There we go. Okay, we got 4 now. This is more of like a war of attrition. I don't think this boss actually gets... Yeah! No, the ice blocked it. I don't think the boss actually gets like more difficult as the fight goes on. Come on, dude. Yeah! Okay, we made it. Finally! Anyway, that went on longer than I expected. This is Titan Souls. It's available on Steam. It's available on PSN. I hesitate to call it a diversion, but what I will call it is it's not a game that is robust with content. It's a game that's much more kind of like laser focused on providing a very deliberate experience, and I respect that and I appreciate it. I'm not totally sure how I feel about you know, whether or not this will be one of the year's best games or whatever have you, but it's full of a lot of interesting ideas, and it's very fun to play. And at the same time, you know, it's that fun level of frustrating. So you should know if that's the kind of thing that you're not interested in at all, that then you probably will have a hard time enjoying yourself playing Titan Souls. But in any case, I've had a good time so far. I would not be surprised to see myself finish it. I'm not planning really on doing a series of it, but I'm sure that other people will be. But in any case, thanks for watching. There will be a link in the video description to pick up the game on Steam if you are interested. If you enjoyed the video, click the like button. It helps out a great deal. And of course, subscribe if you want to see more in the future. But for now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.